Hello and welcome to a new vlog and a video in cooperation with ReiseJung. We're taking a look at days 3 and 4 on board of the Swiss Splendor on our way to the tulip blossom in the Netherlands. Today we're in Rotterdam, then we're heading on to Schoonhoven, and on day 4 we are in Hoorn at the IJsselmeer. We're starting quite early in the morning on day 3. Around 8 o'clock we left the ship by bus heading for the famous Keukenhof. The Keukenhof is one of the most famous tourist sites in the Netherlands. It's a garden show, it's a tulip blossom show, which is only open in springtime. As you can see, there are hundreds of buses at some days. There are even more than 1,000 buses at the same time, so it can get extremely crowded, and that's why we decided to go there as early as possible, even though it meant that we have to get up a little bit earlier. But as you can see, it is extremely beautiful. The tulips were in full blossom, also the other plants and flowers were extremely nice. It was very colorful, it was just breathtakingly beautiful, and in the morning hours it was not even that crowded. Of course, you're not there alone, you're far from being alone there, but it is at least not overcrowded yet. There are some outdoor areas where you can see the tulips and other flowers, and then there are some indoor areas, for example with an orchid show where you can see several kinds of orchids. So of course also this was extremely beautiful. So my recommendation for visiting the famous Keukenhof is going there as early as possible. We went there on Easter Saturday, but as we were there in the morning it was still not overcrowded. You should absolutely avoid going there in the afternoon, because then it is just insane. We will see it a little bit later on what the Keukenhof looked like during lunchtime, and it will get still more crowded later on. But visiting the Keukenhof is absolutely worth it, even though of course it is a very touristy place. It is also a very beautiful place, and if you're going there at the right time, it is still worth it. Of course, there are also some parts of the area that are not that crowded, especially the parts without tulips. Those areas are usually not that crowded. But now we can see what the Keukenhof looks like during lunchtime, and as you can see it is extremely crowded, and in the afternoon it will be even more people there. So highly recommend going there in the morning hours as we did. We had enough space to actually enjoy this wonderful, colorful place, and it was a fantastic morning. We then headed back with the bus through some more tulip fields back to the Swiss Splendor in Rotterdam. Most tours are going from Amsterdam to the Keukenhof, but it's almost the same distance from Rotterdam, and Rotterdam takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes longer, but coming from Amsterdam there is usually a traffic jam, as there are so many people going to the Keukenhof that in the end it will take about the same amount of time. After lunch we then left Rotterdam, and just as with the Jane Austen, we left in the wrong direction, of course on purpose, because we did a small harbor tour. We headed all the way down to the SS Rotterdam, the museum ship, one of the very few still existing transatlantic ocean liners, toured there, and then headed to our next destination in Schoonhoven. Here you can see the SS Rotterdam, and here we can see the Astoria. The Astoria is currently the oldest cruise ship in the world. Unfortunately, she is now actually sold for scrap. It was reported several times that she is sold for scrap, and she always survived, but now actually will be scrapped, which is very sad because it is a very important ship when it comes to history. She was the Völkerfreundschaft, she sank the Andrea Doria, so a very, very important ship history-wise. Very sad to see her go. Probably this was the last time I saw her ever in my life. But the SS Rotterdam of course will stay there, as she is used as a hotel, restaurant, event location and museum. And then we left Rotterdam, sailed past Noah's Ark again, and now we are reaching Kinderdijk again, and as promised in the last video, now we can see the windmills of Kinderdijk actually properly. And after this beautiful sight, we met the former MS Aurora ship we sailed on last season, year 2024. Now she's called DCS Amethyst 2, and she has a strange green livery. But this was the first ship where I worked on as a cruise manager for ReiseJung. Back then I didn't have that much time to make videos, so there's only a ship tour around Aurora. But now, as you know, there are always at least 2 cruise managers on board with ReiseJung. I always have enough time to make the videos whilst being the cruise manager on board, and that's why you can enjoy those videos now. Here we see another beautiful river cruise ship, the Lafayette of Croisière Europe, which is a very small but nice and modern river cruise ship. Very interesting ship. Hope to be able to travel on it one day. Also ship that is able to sail on smaller rivers. Of course, we were also sailing past some more windmills, and then we reached our evening destination of Schoonhoven. We reached Schoonhoven only in the evening, but we did that on purpose. It was just meant for an evening walk. We decided to go to one of my favorite restaurants. It's called Café de Vlist. It's about 1 hour of walking away from Schoonhoven, but it's very, very nice. It's in the middle of the nature and it offers some fantastic food. So I really enjoyed being there again, and then we walked back to the ship. The walk itself is also extremely beautiful, as Schoonhoven is located in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nature. It's just 1 hour from Rotterdam, but you feel like there is no big city for hours, because there's just so much nature, and walking through this nature is just simply beautiful, especially during such a beautiful sunset. Whilst reaching this beautiful windmill, we are also reaching Schoonhoven. Again, we're back in Schoonhoven, walked through the beautiful city center and discovered this beautiful city. Of course, the shops were closed. There are also a few nice shops, but visiting a city is not only about shopping, it's also about seeing how beautiful a city is, and it was on purpose that we just stopped there in the evening for an evening walk so that we could enjoy sailing out of Rotterdam after lunch, enjoy sailing in the afternoon, and then we had time for an evening walk in a very beautiful city. We then headed back on board, and in the night we left Schoonhoven again and headed for Hoorn at the IJsselmeer. We woke up early in the morning when we were on the Amsterdam-Rhine Canal, already close to Amsterdam. We then sailed past the suburbs of Amsterdam. We didn't go into the city like most cruise ships do, but we decided that one big city like Rotterdam is enough, and Rotterdam is, in my opinion, much better than Amsterdam, because Amsterdam is just so touristy and crowded and it's hectic, and Rotterdam is much more relaxed. And also now we decided to leave the big city aside and instead head to a wonderful smaller town called Hoorn at the IJsselmeer. We are now sailing on the IJsselmeer, which used to be the Zuiderzee. It used to be an ocean, but they built a dike and now it is a lake. It is a huge lake. In some directions there's no land in sight. It is not very deep water, but still it feels like being on an ocean because it is just so wide and long. So that's very impressive, and I always love sailing on the IJsselmeer and the IJsselmeer. Of course, it can get a bit bumpy and shaky if the weather is bad, but the weather was quite okay. There were just small waves, so it was a pleasant sailing on the IJsselmeer. And as always, it was quite impressive. Also, approaching Hoorn is very impressive because it feels like actually going into a port with an ocean ship, because it is a proper port. You're coming from the big open sea or lake, and then you're heading past some lighthouses and you're going into the port, and you can see the beautiful silhouette of Hoorn. The docking location is very centrally located. It's just 5 to 10 minutes and you're in the beautiful city center. Here you can see a small boat on the left side. You can now see it a bit closer, and that is the boat for our boat tour. It's the water taxi of Hoorn, and with that you can do a nice tour through the canals of Hoorn. You can get some free drinks whilst on board. Always a nice excursion with happy guests, with satisfied guests. Also, the weather got much better. Fortunately, we couldn't join the boat tour because it was already full. In addition, we had a tour to a tulip company producing tulips by a bus. Here we can see the boat on its way, and in a second we can see the boat going through one of the narrowest bridges of Hoorn. It's always very spectacular. Of course, I did the tour myself a few times, and it's always quite nice to go through this very small bridge. It's always a lot of fun and the guests always enjoy it. But from here we are now heading into the city center of Hoorn, which we can see here, and as you can see, it is a very, very beautiful city. A lot of shopping opportunities, so many cafes, restaurants, bars. So indeed a very, very beautiful city and absolutely worth a visit. In the evening it was time to head back to the ship, but before we stopped at a famous cafe, there's a famous German and Dutch song which is written about this exact cafe here. But then it was time to head back on board. There was a ship next to us, the Monarch Queen, which actually is a sister ship of our Swiss Splendor. In my opinion, with this livery she looks a bit better. And the Othello was also on board, also a ship which I already showed to you. But then it was also time for us to leave Hoorn, heading back out on the IJsselmeer and starting our way back to Germany. We have one more stop in the Netherlands, in Nijmegen. That will be the topic of the next video. Sailing out of the port here also is spectacular. As you can see, it feels a bit like going out on the ocean, even though it's just a big lake, but it's still very impressive and beautiful. So for me, sailing on the IJsselmeer or IJsselmeer is always a highlight of a cruise, just because you get this feeling of being on a small ocean ship. As you can see, no land in sight, except for the skyscrapers of the next city on the other side of the lake, so that's also quite impressive and a beautiful sight. And now it is time to head back to the border and back to Germany. As I said, one more stop in the Netherlands on the way. Then it was time for yet another nice dinner. Just to make sure this is not the standard size of the main course, I ordered a double portion because the standard size always tends to be a bit too small for me. That's of course always possible to order more or less. After dinner there was a nice sunset whilst we were approaching the end of the IJsselmeer, heading back to Amsterdam. Of course we are not stopping there again, turning left after the Oranje Lock, which separates the IJsselmeer from the River Ij. If you would continue on straight, you would go to Amsterdam, but as explained, on most of our cruises we don't stop in Amsterdam, and instead we prefer to visit smaller and more individual places. Here we are reaching the lock, and after the lock we're turning left, and we can get a few looks of the silhouette of Amsterdam in the background with still a beautiful sunset. So it was a wonderful evening on board the Swiss Splendor, heading now to Nijmegen, and then we're continuing on in Germany on our way back to Hanau, the home port of ReiseJung. That's it for this video. Here you can see when the next video with days 5 and 6 will be uploaded, and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.